Some findings turn everything upside down in a moment. What begins as a normal sea research trip quickly turns into something totally unexpected. A puzzling box, brought up from the deep water, contains a shocking truth nobody could have guessed. Get ready for one of the most amazing stories ever to come from the ocean's dark depths. A weird metal box found at the ocean bottom made news when local scientists found it. At first, it seemed like any regular shipping box, but it contained a huge secret inside. When their underwater machine brought it up and the thick doors opened, everyone turned completely white. It wasn't luck that the box was found on this exact day. Coast Guard equipment had detected big movements in the water, and underwater sound reports kept arriving. Only something very heavy dropping into the ocean could make this kind of noise, so Captain Sarah Mitchell's crew got the task of checking what was making the shaking. The equipment that found the strongest shaking was about 20 miles from land. When Sarah Mitchell and her crew got to the spot, they started working right away. Since Sarah Mitchell was also the main scientist, she always went underwater first. She dove down and found their target after only a few minutes. "I can see it perfectly," Sarah Mitchell shouted as she came back up. "Let's send the machine down there." She quickly told the ship's diving machine to take over. "Let's bring it onto our boat," she ordered. Luckily, they hadn't left their research center with just any regular ship. Their boat had the best equipment that Sarah Mitchell knew how to use. Following Sarah Mitchell's directions, her crew got the underwater robot ready to go deep. But nobody was ready for the weird finding they were about to make. As the robot was put into the water, Sarah Mitchell took charge, and the most thrilling part of their trip could start. When the robot got to the box, it was time to begin lifting. It wrapped its metal claws around the box's edges. From there, the ship just had to pull the robot back up. But this turned out much harder than they thought. The box was surprisingly heavy. Their ship's lifting machine could raise huge things, but somehow this simple shipping box made their equipment work extremely hard. The whole boat swayed back and forth and even took in some water while lifting the metal box out of the ocean. "What the heck is in there?" Sarah Mitchell said, her voice full of worry. With great struggle and several nervous faces, they finally managed to lift the mysterious box out of the water. With a loud bang, it hit their ship's floor, and the whole crew ran over to look at their exciting discovery. What was it? Why was it here, and what was inside? While Sarah Mitchell's workers might have been excited, the person who was really amazed was Sarah Mitchell herself. She had seen something that her teammates had missed. A shipping box usually wasn't waterproof, so when lifted from the ocean bottom, you'd expect water to flow out of every crack. But somehow, that wasn't happening here. This normal-looking shipping box was sealed completely, as if it was made to keep every bit of water out. But why? The team's deck workers, who were the crew's strong ones, had already started pulling on the door handle, but Sarah Mitchell told them to be careful. "We don't know what's in there," she warned. "This could be risky." Everyone waited for Sarah Mitchell's order. After taking a few deep breaths, she decided it was time. "Open it up, but do it slowly," she told them. Using big bolt cutters, they cut off the main lock on the box, and then the door handles were pulled away. Slowly but surely, the box doors swung open, and when the door was finally completely open, everyone watching turned pale right away. Nobody could have expected them to make this strange discovery, and the person who was most shocked was Sarah Mitchell herself. She stared in wonder at what she saw inside this metal container. I just don't get what's happening," Sarah Mitchell stuttered, stepping away from her crane controls and moving closer to the mysterious box. She quietly walked past her crew members and entered the open box space. The woman's eyes were wider than they had ever been, and she looked at every part of this confusing place. Sarah Mitchell's finger touched everything inside the box. Some objects were made of wood, and others were covered in cloth. These were things that had no business being in a place like this, and with everything Sarah Mitchell saw, the confusion in her mind got stronger. She turned around and looked at her crew. Nobody spoke at first. They had talked about what the box might hold, but nobody had expected this. Sarah Mitchell was the first to break the quiet. "What is this? Did someone live here?" Her voice was full of shock because the contents looked strangely like home. She asked one of her teammates to explain, but her teammates didn't have an answer. Sarah Mitchell took a step back to look at the box as a whole and shook her head. She was completely speechless. The inside of the box was completely furnished. There was a bed, couch, closet, and table with chairs. It had everything any normal home would have. "Has any of you ever seen anything like this?" Sarah Mitchell asked her teammates, but everyone in the group shared the same shock and confusion about the strange finding. There were so many questions. Where did this come from? Who would live like this? And why? It didn't take long for the group to start looking around. Sarah Mitchell was surprised not only by the fact that the box was fully furnished, but also by the fact that everything was still mostly in place. They quickly found out that everything was nailed to the floor. However, some loose things were scattered on the ground, and they found photos of a man and his family. Did he or they live in the box? Who were they, and what happened to them? They kept searching to find answers to those questions. They searched every part of the box, but didn't find anything that brought them closer to the truth. Sarah Mitchell let out a frustrated sigh and was about to give up when one of her teammates suddenly let out an excited shout. "Sarah, look at this!" he called out. When she turned around, she could see him holding up a plastic bag, but what caused his excitement was what was inside it, some kind of recorder. Sarah Mitchell rushed toward him and carefully took the bag. Maybe this could give them some answers. Sarah Mitchell handled the bag very carefully, worried that any wrong move might cause it to break or ruin any recording. The device was stored very neatly inside the bag, and when she opened it, Sarah Mitchell right away noticed that the device was still dry. This was a good sign, and she pressed play with hope. Even though the recorder seemed dry and Sarah Mitchell had faith, her heart still jumped when a voice could be heard. The group let out some excited whispers, and Sarah Mitchell signaled for quiet so they could listen to the recording. It was a male voice, probably from the man in the pictures. This was great. It was hard to understand the recording out in the middle of the ocean, so the group quickly moved inside the ship. At first, it was mostly background noise, but then the voice sounded clear. "I need to record this before they notice we are here and catch us," the voice said, responding to someone in the background. The voice sounded scared, making the first spoken sentence in the recording very threatening. There was a short quiet, and then the man cleared his throat and said his name was David Chen. "I hope someone will find the box in this recording and is able to help. Lives are in danger," he said urgently. The recording suddenly went quiet. Sarah Mitchell looked at her teammates who all shared the same look, a look of pure shock and confusion. What had they gotten themselves into? What was happening? The message sounded disturbing, and they wanted to help this person, but how? Then the recording suddenly continued. The recorder crackled, and the sound wasn't as good as before. Sarah Mitchell moved closer to hear what the voice said. "We are in desperate need of help. We are on the Ever cargo Voyager, but I don't know for how long. Please save us." The tone of the man got more and more desperate. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." Then the recording device broke down once more. Sarah Mitchell worked hard to fix it, but nothing she did helped. It wouldn't work. The room became quiet. No one could speak. Everyone understood that something awful had happened to whoever owned the container. But what was it exactly? And was there a way to help them? Then Sarah Mitchell recalled something important. The ship had been seen many times, but seemed to stop at ports for only brief periods each time. It just got fuel and moved very few goods, even though it was packed with containers. Sarah Mitchell looked puzzled. Why would a ship carrying shipping containers rarely dock and not load its containers? This odd activity really puzzled Sarah Mitchell and seemed warning signs. She talked about it with her coworkers who felt that something fishy was going on with that ship. Sarah Mitchell looked through the log records once more, hoping to discover more details about the boat. She cried out when she saw where it was last spotted. "It's nearby," she said. "We might be able to locate them." The strange reports in the log records and the scary recording were enough for Sarah Mitchell to try to hunt down the ship. The spot wasn't distant, and if they understood the man in the recording right, time was almost up. Sarah Mitchell made sure everyone on board understood the situation, and she felt better knowing they shared her worry. She gave the captain the ship's last known position. When they got there, the boat was floating 20 kilometers from shore, still and quiet. Even though they were curious, the team felt nervous and decided they needed help. Sarah Mitchell called the Coast Guard and police. When the officials showed up, Sarah Mitchell told them what they had found. "We discovered proof of people being kept against their wishes," she said. "This might be human trafficking." The situation was treated seriously, but there was a problem. If the crew thought law enforcement was approaching, they might not cooperate. To stay hidden, officers dressed in the research team's clothes and went to the ship pretending to do a scientific study on fish movement. Sarah Mitchell and 2 officers took a small boat to the ship. As they came closer, the stress increased. The captain didn't want to let them on board. While he gave commands to his crew, the 3 waited. After 30 minutes, a ladder was finally dropped down. The captain gave them 1 hour, then left. Sarah Mitchell and the officers moved carefully through the boat, acting like they were gathering information while watching everything around them. Everything looked normal, probably because any evidence of crimes had been quickly concealed. Running out of options, Sarah Mitchell started quietly calling out a name. "David Chen. David Chen, are you there?" To their amazement, a container nearby opened and they were dragged inside. The 3 were shocked to see it was full of people. The inside looked like the container they had found earlier. A man demanded to know who they were, and Sarah Mitchell knew him from the recording. "Are you David Chen?" she asked cautiously. After she explained how they had discovered the message, the man's behavior changed completely. It was David Chen. He thanked them, saying this could finally be their opportunity to get away. "Thank God someone discovered my message," David Chen said, with tears in his eyes. "I believed we were going to die in this place." David Chen told them the truth. He and many others had been tricked into coming aboard with promises of safe travel. Instead, they were forced to work without pay and couldn't leave. He had been stuck for 2 years, others even longer, living in awful conditions inside containers. After trying to fight back, David Chen was punished. His container was thrown into the sea, but he'd managed to hide a message inside before it was lost. "They tossed my container into the water as punishment," David Chen explained. "I thought I would drown, but I managed to make that recording first, hoping someone would discover it." The officers were amazed. What they'd found was worse than just mistreatment. It was captivity. The ship held families who had been tricked and held in horrible conditions. With the truth out, the authorities took action. David Chen gave information about the crew, and additional help was called. A surprise attack was started, catching the crew unprepared. The mission worked. The criminals were caught, and the Coast Guard took over the ship. Sarah Mitchell helped David Chen and others get out of their containers. The ship was brought to the closest city, where emergency shelters were quickly set up for the victims. It didn't take long for news reporters to hear about the story. It became a national news story, and Sarah Mitchell watched it closely as she went home. After the city took charge of helping the victims, she was happy to see the situation ended well and extremely pleased she had helped make it happen. "I'm just happy we discovered that container when we did," Sarah Mitchell told news reporters. "Sometimes the ocean reveals its secrets at exactly the right time." Did you like this story? If you had found that container with the desperate message, would you have put yourself at risk to help those people? Tell us what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, follow this channel and hit the like button. Sometimes doing what's right means being brave. When we decide to help people who are in trouble, we can make a real difference in their lives. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hope you have a wonderful day.